time. We're uncaged.
Welcome to Topple Uncaged. I'm Steve Topple and you're locked on to the UK's hottest politics and music podcast. Each week I bring you the rawest takes on the big stories making the news, always joined by a very special guest. Then I pleasure your mind, body and soul with the freshest, most banging international music going.
Uncaged.
So much to say, but who will listen? I feel so much through sound, but I need a vision.
This week marks the 60th anniversary of the death of jazz legend Billie Holiday. She's quite personal to me, as my late father, a semi-professional jazz musician, sort of looked upon her as his idol almost. I grew up listening to Holiday and other jazz greats like Satchmo, Ella Fitzgerald, Sarah Vaughan, all the big names in jazz. Like I say, it's the 60th anniversary of her death this week, so it is very fitting that my next guest has released her EP this week as well. Because for me, and I'm gonna put my neck on the line here, this guest is on a par with regards to her vocal interpretation and her vocal delivery, and the intricacy of it with greats like Billie Holiday, Edith Piaf, Amy Winehouse, all the artists whose vocal interpretation they were renowned for. She is on the par with these, trust me. And when you listen to her EP, you'll understand why. She was the fourth ever music guest on this podcast, and my, how we've both grown since then. She is back for a second time to talk about her debut EP, Soundbites, but also to talk about everything else she gets up to, and as I say, the stunning vocal ability that she has. I'm so thrilled to be able to welcome back on to Topple Uncaged the incredible MIRI. MIRI, thank you so much for coming back on again. It is lovely to speak with you more.
Oh, thank you so much for having me back. I'm looking forward to this interview.
It is my pleasure. So look, let's get straight into it. You have dropped your Soundbites EP. This show is going out on Friday, the 19th of July, and this is the day that it is properly released. I mean, it's an astonishing piece of work. We'll get into the kind of the musical ingenuity of it later on, because it is extremely, for me and for my ear, it is quite complex. But as I said in the introduction, what stands out as well is your vocal prowess throughout it, which we'll also talk a bit about later. But overall, stunning project. You should be extremely proud of what you've accomplished with this. I mean, how long has it taken you to get to this point where you were happy and you had tracks which you were comfortable with, and finally decided to go for it and release this EP? Has this been a long time in the making, as it were?
I'd say I always want to record new stuff, but it's about having a budget for it, and that can be the challenge. So I knew I wanted to record new music and strip everything back, more so than my previous recordings, because I've been doing a lot of gigs, just me on keys, and it kind of just seemed to make space for my voice to be heard more, and for my songs to be heard, and it seemed to really resonate with audiences. So for quite a while I'd been thinking, I really want to capture this on a new recording, and it was thanks to doing a Kickstarter campaign that I think I launched that last year, November, and was very grateful to have exceeded my target. I did a crowdfunder about 3 years ago for another recording, and they always say your first one is quite tough, and this second one, it was really emotional actually, because you're sort of just doing what you do and plugging away and following your passions, and working on causes as well that I kind of felt were important to me to do creatively, musically. And then this Kickstarter just took off. I think it was within about 2 days, people had pledged $1,000 or something. And it really just kind of gave me a boost and affirmed to me that I'm on the right track and I've just got to keep doing what I'm doing. Because often when you don't have a team around you, or you are an independent artist, you've got to motivate yourself. So basically, through doing that crowdfunder, it's sort of been about keeping to timelines, basically. And I knew that I wanted to finish the EP this year. I knew I wanted to release it before August. And it's kind of been a real challenge at times, but a real learning curve, and definitely a stepping stone for future projects. So it's definitely been a while in the making, in that idea of thinking, I really want to kind of do some recordings and strip them back. And then the process, in fact, I think the process, I probably started recording stuff from around last August. So it's taken a good few months to then raise the money, record, finish. And I've worked with some great people on the EP as well. A lovely guy called Simon Wiley, who also does some work for Brian Ferry. He's been amazing and just sort of stepped in to help finish the production, mixed it. There's a lovely guy called Neil who mastered it. So I've been very blessed to work with some amazing people on the recording as well, to kind of understand what my vision was and to help me kind of actually fulfill that.
No, absolutely, and it completely showcases your abilities perfectly. And I mean, I remember obviously interviewing you before that you literally hadn't long launched the sort of crowdfunding effort to get the EP done. And I think it's fascinating what you say. It can be very isolating. I mean, I understand that as an independent journalist. I work remotely. We don't work in an office as such, and that's an isolating process as well, especially when you're doing journalism, which is often quite emotive. So I imagine for an artist, it's probably tenfold. I mean, so you had the crowdfunding, the fundraiser, and the EP is now here. And as I said in the introduction, it is a stunning project. I mean, music, stunning. It's stunning, Miri. Musically, now for me, it's very, very intriguing. It's quite hard to pin down. You go from elements of there was all sort of tinges of that post-Britpop era, actually, I thought, in some of the tracks. But what's also interesting is there's reggae influences in there. You have the bubble pattern going on, especially on Somebody Save Me, which is, again, is a fascinating track. There's the bubble pattern going on, but it's very pronounced, and it's almost ska-like, because you have the keys on the treble clef, which are doing the pattern on the 2 and the 4 beat. And then, as with traditional bubble pattern, you have the keys on the bass clef doing something winding in between them, and it does give that kind of ska feeling, although it's not ska at all. And you've got kind of almost calypso-esque guitars, which then suddenly morph into more kind of rock, kind of grittier tones. Soundbites is the track specifically, which I kind of has sort of indie post-Britpop vibes about it. And as I say, it's this wonderful hybrid of genres and styles, which as it still harks home of certain elements to me, but I can't quite put my finger on it at all. But for me, the reggae elements are most interesting, because as regular listeners to this podcast will know, reggae and dancehall are one of my passions. I have regular reggae guests on, and this, of course, stood out to me straight away with Soundbites. I mean, Miri, is reggae something you've always listened to, and is it something that has kind of motivated and inspired you musically? Because it's strong, the influence on there, for me, anyway.
I guess musically, I've always been drawn to lots of different styles of music, from reggae roots to folk to pop. And I used to work at a charity organisation in my teens called Raw Material, and I did a course there and then ended up working there. And one of my friends who was older than me, who worked there, she introduced me to a lot of artists, from like Nick Drake to Carole King, to a lot of reggae and roots artists and songs. And we'd be in her car and she'd just be putting her cassettes in, so there was definitely sort of a seed planted from my teens. funnily enough, I think just sort of supporting Natty when I was invited to perform at the 100 Club quite a few years back now for the official Bob Marley birthday celebration. And I think that was the first time I saw Natty perform live. And I just loved what he did in his live performance. And I performed at a few of his nights at Vibes and Pressure and would see him perform. And I definitely feel when I was writing Good Ones, there was an element of being inspired by what Natty does, but still being myself. But I think it's kind of when you come across artists and they inspire you and you connect with what they're doing, you can't help but sort of put that into what you're creating, but sort of make it your own.
No, absolutely, and it's completely your stamp. It's very, very interesting you mentioned Natty, because now thinking about that, listening to Good Ones specifically, that you can hear the influences. Natty, of course, friend of this podcast, came on, my goodness, back in January. He's amazing, great artist. Just to go off script slightly, what would you call your style then? I'm quite intrigued to know because you're really hard to pin down. There's all sorts of elements going on. Well, how would you sum it up?
I'd probably call it soulful pop or soulful indie pop because there's definitely a pop element, and I've grown up listening to so much popular music. But I think, again, from listening to reggae, Motown and soul, there is an element of a soulful feel and how I sing. So I would say soulful indie pop. No, because it's sort of changed. I used to call what I did soulful pop, but then I think putting in the indie, it just gives a different sort of understanding of what it is that I do. So
yeah, I think that's fairly spot on, actually. I mean, as I say, there's sort of elements of reggae, but it is, especially on Soundbites, the backing vocal and the arrangement of that on that track it's got a bit of a doo-wop feel about it. If you if you up the tempo slightly, it could almost sort of hark back to sort of that 70s classic period in soul. So yeah, indie soul pop, I think is a very very fair description. I mean, obviously, the composition process is something that you do almost in its entirety, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. But I mean, how does I'm always interested because I'm obviously a musician myself. How does the composition process work for you? Does it begin with an idea or an event in your life, and then lyrics come, and then the music is the final element that's added? How do you go about composing tracks like Good Ones? What was the beginning? I mean, socially and the message within it is fantastic, and we'll try and touch on that later. But how does the composition process work for you?
It has to be something that usually has happened that I feel like I feel powerless about, or I just feel like I need to express it. So it could be something. It could be something within my personal life or something that I see going on externally, and then I sit down at the piano or keys, and I guess what I do now, I just let myself flow with it. I don't think too much. I just let what I need to say come out, and then I edit it after. And I knew when I was writing Good Ones, I needed to just let it flow and keep it simple, and again have that space within the lyrics. So instead of saying lots of things, just keep the message simple. And I remember actually I was sitting with a glass of whiskey, and I was going through stuff personally. I remember I was at my folks actually, and I'd been watching the news, and it was a time when the MPs in Parliament had decided the majority vote to bomb Syria again, and I just felt so powerless, and the thought of more innocent lives being lost, and the fact that I'm sitting there and there's nothing that I could do about it. So with that, along with other personal stuff that I was going through, just sitting down and just expressing it, it's just so cathartic. And then being able to kind of perform perform these songs to audiences and share my message, and then for that to kind of connect and resonate. Like I know it's not going to connect and resonate with everyone, but the people who need to hear it will hear it. And that's what I feel is very beautiful and special about being an artist and songwriting.
No, absolutely, and what you've done so masterfully as well is each of the tracks, but especially good ones, and also Soundbites. Actually, the lyrics and the way you've constructed them, it means it can resonate with anyone. There's this sort of fascinating narrative within good ones where you do the comparison to, as you say, people who do feel powerless, and then it's juxtaposed with commentary on those who are in power and the difference between them. It's extremely cleverly constructed track, and it will resonate with anyone. That's the beauty of it. But it will also resonate with anyone. And again, I'm throwing my script away here. It will also resonate with anyone because of your vocal delivery. There's a reason I compared you vocally to Billie Holiday and Piaf and Winehouse, because when you sort of break down Soundbites as a project and as a whole, it is. I mean, the music's fascinating. The music is superb, and the production quality is excellent. The arrangements are fantastic. It's your vocal which is really, really impressive, because you have this ability via a recording platform to almost convey and plant the listener in some sort of North London smoky kind of jazz club where you're performing intimately to, like, I don't know, 50, a handful of people. And you're almost delivering that performance to each and every one of this small group of people. And listening to your record, that's what it feels like. And that's a really hard thing to pull off, to make a record and deliver a vocal performance via the medium of, in today's world now, online streaming, to make it sound intimate and make it sound like you are talking to just that person that is listening. But you pull it off remarkably. It's a wonderful, wonderful achievement to do that. But moreover, as well, with your vocal, you have these wonderful qualities which are seen in the other artists that I discussed in terms of the way you deliver the lyrics and the emotion behind the lyrics. I mean, for example, you use this wonderful tool where you switch the pitch sort of in the middle of lines, sort of, and fill that gap in between the semitones almost, and you kind of go up and you kind of go down a bit, and it adds to the not only the smoothness of the delivery from you, but it also adds to the power of the message you're delivering. You clip quite often the words at the end of that line, which almost it makes it feel like you're literally thinking about what you're saying, and then it just comes out of your mouth at that moment, and it adds a kind of suspenseful kind of, okay, what's she going to say next? The clipping of each word at the end, and also your syllables are very, very pronounced throughout. You can hear every word, and the sharpness of each syllable again just adds to this momentum of the message that's building throughout the EP. And the whole project as a sum of its parts, as I say, feels like an intimate live performance, but it's also so strong vocally, and therefore the message that you're conveying, it's truly, truly remarkable. You deserve all credit for what you've achieved vocally with it. It's quite something to listen to, I have to say. And as I say, I've just thrown my script up and gone completely off track, but that's my interpretation of MIRI as a vocalist. I mean, aside from the EP, as I say, which is a stunning project. No, actually, I'm going to scrub that. I want to ask you this. Sorry to put you on the spot. Your vocal, the way you interpret your own lyrics and your performance, where has that come from? Is that just who you naturally developed as a performer? Is this what comes out of you, as it were? Or have there been other artists who you've kind of almost locked onto and thought, wow, yeah, I love what he or she or they do? Where does MIRI, the vocalist, where does this come from?
I think definitely it comes from the core of who I am, and as I get older and experience more challenges in life, I just kind of push further down, basically, which is how I connect to that grit. But in regards to other artists, definitely for a long time, I used to listen to Coldplay a lot. and I really loved Chris Martin and how he performed. And then again, I know there are so many reggae and roots artists, but Bob Marley and the Wailers, the way that that Bob Marley performs and sings, there's definitely something that, again, that's something that inspires me. And I feel like the way he sings and performs, it's almost like prayer, but not in a religious way. He's really coming from his root. So I would probably say people like Bob Marley and Chris Martin, and a lot of kind of maybe soul and Motown artists. Although my voice doesn't sound like them, it's kind of like when I listen to Motown and soul, what I find so amazing about what they do is if you kind of just looked at the lyrics, they're singing kind of pop songs, if you like, or you know, she left me or he left me, but the way that they make it sound with their voice, that's the soul. They really dig deep. So I definitely feel that there's probably been a selection of music and artists that I've kind of connected to and have sort of made it into what I do. But I'm also very mindful that the way that I speak when I sing, I don't want it to sound that different, because then it's kind of like, well, who actually am I? I just want my singing to be an extension of my spoken word. So it's kind of taking all these inspirations, which are just very natural and organic, and it just, it's like all these ingredients, and it just helps me to sort of, I guess, get to my core. But I'd say as well, just life in general just inspires my voice. And I think definitely from when I was in my teens to 20s to where I am now, my voice has definitely grown and becomes, it just continues to not change, but just, even now when I perform live, it's slightly different to the EP recording, because you just continue to go through stuff in life. And like even in the past few months, I had 2 bereavements of some friends who were young, and things like that kind of just really put stuff in perspective, and it can change us. So that is naturally going to affect the way that I perform. So I just feel like all these elements play a part in where my voice where it comes from. But what is really important to me is for me to be authentic and true to who I am. And even though I'm inspired by these different ingredients, these different artists, to still make sure that I'm being myself and not getting carried away and being someone that I'm not. And that's really important to me.
No, I think that completely shines through on the EP. I mean, it's the explanation you gave and the reasoning behind your voice and how it evolves completely makes sense as to why you are such a strong performer and artist, vocally and interpretatively. It's fantastic. It's a real treasure you hold, if you like, and with your voice. It's so impressive. If you wish to have a pause in proceedings to go and get yourself some liquid or other refreshments, then do so now, because MIRI and myself will be back with more chat in a few seconds. I mean, you touched on live performance there. I obviously follow you on Insta, and I keep an eye on your Instagram. I have kind of one eye on it with all the other artists I keep an eye on. And MIRI, Topple's therapy, you seem to have a slight problem. There seems to be some addictive personality behaviours going on with live performance. Because you're constantly bloody playing live. Every time I flick on my Instagram, you've been here, there, everywhere, somewhere else. Would you like to talk about this? Is there an issue here?
Now that you mention it, let me take the space to sort of like, hi, my name's MIRI and I'm a gig. No, I mean, I guess I'm at a space in my career where I don't need to be strategic with my performances. And for me, performances are kind of very much cathartic, but also it's a way, as an independent artist, that I can keep getting my music out there to new fans, to new supporters. It's a way to get paid as well. And it's actually people, what's really lovely actually is it's people approaching me. Like, I remember a few months ago, I was looking at my gig diary for like June, July, August. I was like, oh, it's pretty, there's not much going on at the moment. And then suddenly the emails come and it just, it just happens. And I will only say yes to something that, even if it's paid, I will only say yes to something that I generally want to do. But I think again, in an ideal situation, if I had the budget or the funding, I would love to take a few months to go into the studio and have a bit more time and space to work on my recording sound and explore. And in order to do that, I do need funding. And, I did the crowdfunder for this EP, for the next EP or the next recording. Maybe I'll go, try going for PRS or something like that. But if you're kind of working as a sort of more or less a full-time musician, the money that comes in at this stage anyway, I don't have that extra pot that allows me to be like, right, I'm going to put this into the studio. I'm going to use this time to record with a load of producers, and I would love to do that. But one thing that's almost good about not having that kind of luxury, if you like, it means when I do get in the studio or have these opportunities, I really grasp them. I make the most of them. I do whatever I can. And I mean, with this Soundbites EP, there's things that I listen back and I'm like, oh, I could have done that vocal better. Oh, I could have stripped back the drums, or, and it's kind of like, it's almost just, it's like, oh, I want to get back in the studio. I want to explore this more, but I just sort of accept I am where I am. I'm doing what I can. And also with my own mental health and well-being, there's only so much that I can do. And we get to a point where you just need a bit of a helping hand kind of thing, whether that's through management or a publishing deal. So I just know I'm doing as much as I can, and also because I do think every moment is very important and it's precious, that I don't want to waste my moments. And if I'm getting booked for a gig and it's something that's fun, it allows me to connect with people, because I do think, as much as I'm a people person, sometimes I feel quite happy just to, like, I'm not going out, I'm keeping myself to myself and going to be a recluse. So I actually think the gigging is healthy for me. but at the same, like I said, if I was in a position to kind of have more recording time and balance that out with the performance, I would definitely do that, because it's just a way to be creative. And at the moment, gigging is a way that allows me just to keep doing what I'm doing. But obviously, if I was gigging every night and I just wasn't enjoying it, then I would have to book an appointment with you to have like a bit of a therapy session and chat. But yeah, it's all where it is, I guess, at the moment.
That's fine. You are discharged from Dr. Topple's care with no further action required.
I totally went on a big went round the houses, I think.
No, you didn't. Really, no. You didn't go around the houses at all. That was a brilliant explanation. Thank you very much. Yes, I have no concerns over your Instagram feed now at all, Miri. Thank you very much. You touched on mental health within the answers to that last question, and I know it's an area that you do a lot of work outside of the realms of being a recording artist in, especially the sort of intersections of music and mental health, and how the former can be an extremely pertinent therapeutic tool for the latter almost. I mean, just tell me firstly a bit about what you do in terms of intersecting music and mental health. And also, I'm interested whether you think sort of mainstream therapeutic methods are almost missing a trick with using music and performance as a tool to assist in sort of the improvement of people's health and well-being. But what do you do? Because what are you up to? You do an awful lot regarding this, don't you?
Yeah, there's a few different things. I do I do some music mentoring for a youth charity in South London, and I also kind of am part of the pastoral care. So if there's any young people that sort of need to come in for a chat, or when there's other mentors mentoring young people, I make sure to just oversee everything. There's another charity organisation that uses music to promote positive mental health, and I've been doing some work for them. Probably, I think it's been almost a year now, and they're a charity organisation called Key Changes. And I started off shadowing a few sessions, and what's really good about this work is the organisations like to employ artists. They want to employ musicians and people who are kind of active in music and the music industry. And with this charity, I started off shadowing some sessions, and what I do now a couple of times a month is I run they're called open mic sessions in a mental health hospital. So one of the sessions is for a psychiatric intensive care unit for women. And that, again, all these experiences have really educated me and shown me so much, and reminded me as well the importance of music and how someone can be very irate, or someone can almost be comatose, and then the song that they've requested comes up and they grab the mic and they're dancing, and it's a really there's some real magic moments, and sometimes some really intense ones, but my motivation is when I do one of these sessions is I just want to make sure to do whatever I can in that moment to make that person, or to contribute some small part of that person's moment to make it okay, because what they're going through is so tough, and it can happen to anybody. Like one of the other open mics is for patients who are in the acute wards. And again, I've just experienced some amazing magic moments. I remember one person requested S Club 7 Reach. And then at the end, that was the song that I played. And then people were just getting up and dancing, and people that you would thought they're not going to be into this song or like S Club 7. But in that moment, there's a little bit of happiness and a little bit of sparkle. And I would definitely say as well, this work has allowed me to understand more my own mental health. It's also helped me to grow as a performer. And it's kind of something that I definitely want to continue to do. I do find, because it can be quite intense, I make sure to not do it necessarily like every week or a couple of times a week, because I want to make sure that I'm giving 100% in those sessions. If there's a particularly tough session, I want to make sure that I'm together within myself, that whatever I'm going through, I'm focused, and I just want to give the patients everything in that time. I also, last year, there's an amazing organisation called Girls Rock London, and last year for their summer camp, which was working with, I think the age group, I think it was 11 to 16. I was working on the wellbeing team, and again, that was a very sort of moving experience. I think a lot of people working on it had a moment where they cried, and it's 6 days, and I think by the Friday after a debrief at the end of the day, I just went off and I burst out crying. And it's not crying about anything bad. It's the emotion, it's the struggle that some of the campers are going through, or the beauty of what is actually happening and what is being done. And I remember speaking to one of the founders, Jez, after it was all over, and expressing my experiences, and she was kind of saying it's like a different type of activism, which I completely agree, and really again opened my eyes to another idea of how I can sort of give back as a creative, as a performer on the well-being side. And I'm going to be working again on the well-being team for their summer camp in end of July, beginning of August. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm doing. And then every now and again I might be sort of booked for various panel discussions or things here and there. But those are the most consistent bits of work around mental health and well-being that I've been doing for a little while.
That's absolutely magical, and it's wonderful, wonderful work that you are doing. And as someone who some listeners may know this, who was sectioned many years ago, I totally get the importance of music in terms of mental health, and I think it's an underused tool in the armory, if you like. It's for people's health and well-being, but it's critically important you self-care as well. So. And it's very important, good that you recognise that. What you also I'm going to throw you a right curveball here. You also do a lot of work around LGBTQI plus rights, and I've seen again on your Instagram, which just to make clear for listeners, we know is free of addictive tendencies. On your Instagram, you've done an awful lot of work for Pride Month. Now, I'm interested because there's for this year's Pride, specifically Pride in London, there was a lot of sort of commentators and also politicians actually came out and said Pride is far too corporatized now. It's a pinkwashing and etc. And for me personally, this is something I've been saying for years, that it's gone away from its original founding sort of during Stonewall riots and the fact it was a political and social protest movement, and it's become almost a party with sponsors who not only have directly or indirectly contributed to throwing millions of members of that community into poverty around the world, but also quite often don't really care a jot for the rights of them either. I'm interested on your thoughts on this, because as I say, I see you've been doing a lot for Pride Month, but what you've been doing is actually pretty left field as well, in terms of sort of queer takeovers and your performance. I mean, what are your thoughts on Pride now in 2019 as opposed to where it sort of came from originally?
Well, it's important to have it, and I'm glad that I have that day in London, that if I want to go out and celebrate or protest, that I can actually do that. So I feel like it's important that I acknowledge that, because there are some places that don't have that, who don't have that. But I do feel that, I definitely feel that, I remember, I think it was on the Friday, or maybe it was a few days before actually Pride, I was walking along Oxford Street and I saw all the flags in all the shops. And it just didn't, on one hand, I think it's very good because it kind of opens it up to a lot of people who may not be aware of the LGBTQ plus community, of the flag itself. But I just remember thinking, first of all, if you're going to have the flag, you should have the updated flag. And also you should have the trans flag. And then I just stumbled in stumbled across a pop-up Pride shop in Covent Garden, and yes, that had what all the shops should have had. It had the trans flag, and it had the updated rainbow flag. So I do feel that there's a real issue here, because I look at some of these shops and I think, okay, so throughout the whole year, are you supporting the LGBTQ plus community? If someone comes in, are all your staff kind of, are they educated when it comes to pronouns, and not assuming that if someone comes into your shop that you're going to address them as a he, she? Are you aware that this person could identify as they? So it obviously is like a lot of companies are doing it because it's a way to cash in. I did look up that there are definitely some clothing companies who did some Pride merchandise, but they do actually give back to LGBTQ plus charities. So I think that's very positive and important. But I think the corporations who are kind of in it more for the money, if you're gonna do that, you need to make sure that you represent all of the community in your shop with your flags. And I think that you need to give a percentage, or you need to have a think about how you can give something back to the LGBTQ plus community. So I guess, like, to summarize, I think it's really good that it's out there. I think that's very positive. And I think it's important to have a celebration, but like you say, Pride is a protest. And I've got a lot of friends who are older LGBTQ plus people, and some of them won't go to Pride because from them they remember marching when they were hurled abuse and people would throw things, and for them, you know, it's not, Pride isn't a festival, it is a protest, and let's celebrate within that. But let's also remember that that trans there's so much transphobia going on in this country, and there is a lot of hate crime, and you know, we can't just be like, oh, well, let's just have a party and enjoy everything. It's kind of, let's at least strike a balance. Let's celebrate that we're here, and how far we've come, and show gratitude to those who have gone before us. But let's also protest. And, you know, I think it was amazing, like with UK Black Pride, that they made a very strong stance to say, we're not going to have the Home Office. I think the Home Office were meant to have a stall, and then they basically said, no, this can't happen. And yeah, there's just so much contradiction within it. And I just think, again, I haven't read into this, so I don't know the exact facts, but from what I'm aware, I don't think Theresa May voted for equal marriage in Northern Ireland. So, you know, that's not okay. It's not okay. At least be real. At least say, you know what, this is not something that I feel comfortable with, but don't give the impression just to get people on your side, or, you know, to make out that you're for LGBTQ plus rights, and then when it comes to taking the action, you're basically, well, you're not doing anything. So yeah, that's my feeling towards it.
No, I think that's fairly on the money there. And for me, it is the utter hypocrisy of certain organisations, and especially politicians, as you quite rightly pointed out, Theresa May, did very little or even somewhat no movement on equal marriage in Northern Ireland. But it's this hypocrisy from, especially as you point out, from corporations, namely clothing ones, who will quite happily fly the old rainbow flag in the UK on Oxford Street and in Covent Garden, as you say. But in the countries and the sweatshops where their products are made, they couldn't give two tosses about LGBT rights, effectively. And it's this kind of social and political hypocrisy which makes me most frustrated with it. This is another opportunity for a quick break if you need to use the toilet, because Miri and me will We'll be back here in just a tick. I mean, with you kind of, I mean, is there any sort of activism and social conscience work that you don't do? Because you also work in prisons, male prisons specifically as well, where you've been doing performances, and then specifically around again LGBTQI plus rights, and then sort of question and answer sessions. I mean, just briefly, you work within male prisons. What was your motivator for getting involved in that? And do you need a bloody holiday?
Well, I'm actually going to Barcelona for my birthday in August, which I'm really excited about, and I'm taking a few days off.
Excellent.
So yeah, I mean, with the prison work, I really have to shout out my friend Minnie Birch, who's a musician, and she's worked and also volunteered in prisons for many years now, and the work she does is phenomenal, and very special. And basically, she wanted to put for LGBT History Month, she wanted to invite me down and to organise a performance at 2 male prisons, one being a closed prison and one which was an open one. And the closed prison, she actually said we made history, because it was the first time in all the time it'd been going that it never had an LGBTQ plus event. So she invited me down, and the idea was to perform my songs, and then one of the inmates asked me questions, and then some of the other inmates asked me questions, and we spoke about music and what it's like being a music artist, more so. But what was very special about that particular event, Minnie got the prisoners to fill out feedback forms, and one of the questions was, would you ever want an LGBT plus event again in the prison? And you know, there were a few people who were like no, and then there was one person who, I'm paraphrasing here, but they sort of basically said yes, it made them feel like at home again. So that was obviously someone who wasn't out, because no one in that prison is officially out, or out at all. And so this is someone that is or identifies as either gay or bi, and they're not able to live that. They're not able to live that whilst they're in prison. But this performance or this event just allowed them to kind of just be able to be themselves in that moment. And there was actually, we had another inmate who came up, and he basically had said that his daughter was gay and that she would be very happy that he's attending his first ever LGBT event. But through that, I just got invited by another prison, which I did a performance and a Q&A just the other day, actually. So it just sort of happened. And I've known Minnie for quite a few years now as well. And she asked me, and it just felt, yeah, like I kind of say yes to things that I feel I genuinely want to do and spend my time doing. Yeah, so that's basically how that all came about, and I think the reality is a lot of these inmates are going to be coming out into the real world at some point, and rehabilitation is really important. So having events like this, and for people to be able to ask about what it is to be LGBTQ plus or anything related to that is really important, because it kind of allows, you know, acceptance. I mean, I sort of in a way have a problem sometimes with that word acceptance, because we shouldn't have to be accepted. We are who we are, but we are living in a world that has a lot of hate towards the LGBTQ plus community. So love and acceptance is very important, and very necessary, because we're not actually doing anything wrong. So yeah, if there's something that I can do within this sort of sector, then I'm definitely up for that.
I think it's absolutely fantastic, and everything you do as a side note or as an intersecting part of your music is absolutely brilliant. And I mean, it must. I'm sure in some ways it's quite draining, but also very sort of fulfilling as well. To be able to do all of this. I mean, that kind of leads me into what I want to talk about next, because I want to get back to the music and the Soundbites. When you listen to it, as I have said previously, as a sum of its parts, while it's something and it's a project which will resonate with so many people, and anyone can sit down, listen to it and think, yeah, I feel like that, or I felt like that, or yeah, I've experienced that. It can reach out to most people, I would say. It does feel very introspective. It's not just in terms of the lyrics. I mean, especially in the title track Soundbites, where you basically sort of, and again I'm paraphrasing, but you talk about the fact that you have so many thoughts and issues in your head, and you sort of get them out on music. Is anyone actually listening? And there's kind of elements of powerlessness as a theme actually that runs through the whole EP, from Good Ones to Soundbites. And while it is obviously introspective, as I say, it can reach out to many people. I mean, it does. This theme of powerlessness is throughout it, and you come away listening to it feeling that the artist, you, MIRI, is a person who's kind of trying to still find their place in the world amidst this pervading sense of powerlessness across society, and the notion that somehow there's only a handful of people who are in power and who have power over the rest of us, who are controlling things. And it's almost as if you're contemplating your own place in the world. I mean, is that a position you're still in now? Are you still trying to make sense of the chaos and the carnage and sort of the unbridled patriarchy and classism that exists within our society? Are you still at that point that you were seemingly obviously at in the recording of the EP?
Yeah, definitely. And I think as time goes on, and the more that sort of comes out in the news or on social media, the more I just get completely just very reflective on what is going on. Is this a good thing that it's coming to the surface? Because a lot of this hate has obviously been embedded or been within certain people. So is it good that we know where we stand in order to fight it, or in order to kind of be like, okay, this is what's going on. How can we change that? How can we sort of make this? How can we make sure that the good ones sort of override this hate and override this injustice? And yeah, I mean, there's so much going on, like even with this country, with the new prime minister and what's going on in the States. I mean, it really does baffle me. It really does baffle me. But the only thing I can be sure of is that there is a lot of kindness in the world. There are a lot of people, like in that mental health hospital that I do sessions at. I mean, the heroes are really all the staff that work there, because they're working there day in, day out. And it's not easy what they do. And there are so many people like that who are doing some amazing work, and they're not getting recognized for it, but they do it because they want to, because they want to see change. And again, like with the song Good Ones, that's where the chorus comes from. It's kind of, you know what, I don't know what's going on here. I'm not sure how this is all going to end, but I can surrender, and all I can do is come from a loving heart. Because I do feel that love and kindness is powerful in the same way that hate and anger is very powerful. Love love and unity as well, people coming together. And I think a lot of the things that are happening at the moment are kind of almost created to divide us, because if we're divided, then we're easier to manipulate and control. Whereas when you bring people together, that's power. So I'm really hoping that somehow we can come together, or as many people can come together as possible, unified. Even if we don't agree with everything, that we can still agree on the fact that what is going on is unacceptable, and that we need to fight. We need to kind of stand up to say, no, this is not okay. So I guess, that's how I feel about that at the moment.
Yeah, no, that completely comes across, especially in good ones. It is, I think it is the standout track of the EP, and you end with that message, because there's throughout the track there's your assessment of the situation and this disparity that exists between the people who are the good ones, as you say, and who, as you say in the track, stumble, and then between the ones who are not the good ones and who are responsible for the destruction and the chaos that we live in. But it never strays into negativity. There's always elements of hopefulness throughout the track, and you go away feeling, well, okay, we are in a very bad position as a species, ultimately, but we can do this, and we can unify, as you quite rightly point out. Again, we're not going to agree on everything, but we need to unify around the issues which we can agree on, and implement change from there. So it's like I say, it's not a negative. It's thoughtful, and there are elements of positivity in it. I mean, overall with Soundbites, was that what you were hoping for with the EP as a project? That, I mean, obviously, because it tells your views and your story on numerous things, and also events that have happened to you in your life, like Somebody Save Me. But was that your hope, to create something that, while it's projected your social messages out via the medium of music, it was also something that positive as well in the end? Was that what you planned for it?
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. I think it's kind of just, we need hope. Especially I need hope. And sometimes, a song or a speech coming from someone who's truly authentic and coming from a real heartfelt place, that inspires me and that gives me hope. And I think as music artists, we can do that with our music. And if I can sing songs and it can connect with people in prison, to people experiencing severe mental health illness, then that's at least it's doing something, because that's why I wanted to do music in the first place. There's definitely the element of, there's the enjoyment, as an artist, as an individual, this is fun, I get to express myself, but it's an opportunity to connect to people and to sort of, I remember when I was a kid, and when I'd get down and I'd listen to artists, again, so many different types of artists, from Beverly Knight to kind of Tracy Chapman, and I just remember the songs gave me reassurance. They didn't make everything better, because they can't do that, but they gave me reassurance and soothed me in that moment. And I would really love for my music to be able to do that for people, and again for future projects, just to keep harnessing that and to keep learning and growing, and to be able to do that more. You can't get it all in one recording. That's why it's so important to keep recording where possible, because in the same way, when I'm performing, I'm continuing to grow and learn as a performer. It's the same when you're in the studio and you're kind of mastering your sound. it's a way to, where I am now. Again, I've grown more from where I was when I was recording the project. So now there's other things that I want to kind of, okay, how can I get more of this in the recording? So yeah, I just want what I do to kind of be able to connect, and if it can give people hope or a moment of reassurance or love, and to know that they're not on their own, then that would mean that would be job done, basically, for me.
That was a brilliant way of summing music up. It's probably the best description I've ever heard, actually. That as you said when you were listening to Tracy Chapman and Beverly Knight, and it didn't make everything better, but it soothed you in that moment. I think it's so true. Excellent description. Absolutely brilliant, because it does. I don't think any musician would claim to have all the answers, but they would certainly, hopefully, be able to project some succour for the listener, and I think that's what you do in droves. I mean, you, just to sort of finish up, you're taking a well-deserved holiday in Barcelona. How much more are you going to cram into 2019, Miri? What else is in store for you, apart from working across numerous projects, giving something back to the community, dropping an EP, constantly performing live, left, right and centre? What else is in store for the rest of the year? Obviously, we've had the EP. What else is coming up?
Well, basically, I'm going to be working on putting together a UK tour. So I'm working on various funding opportunities. It'll probably be a 5-day tour or something like that. And so once things have sort of calmed down, I'll be, working on that to get that sort of, I've already started sowing seeds, and we'll sort of hopefully get that going for next year. Won't say any dates because just life can be so unpredictable and there's so much going on at the moment. But that's definitely something that I would really love to do, and the theme so far that I'd like to make it around is sort of reclaiming the spaces, from music spaces to LGBTQ plus spaces. So I've still got to fine tune everything a bit more. But yeah, that's all kind of, that's what's ticking over at the moment, and I'm kind of doing what I can whilst I can to start kind of manifesting that. So yeah, watch this space.
Excellent. More live performance. Love it. Brilliant. And obviously you'll be promoting the EP and continuing to do the wonderful work you do outside and in correlation with music. All the links to the organisations that Miri mentioned will be in the show notes, as will the link to the EP, as will the link to her no longer problematic Instagram account and Twitter and Facebook, obviously. Miri, it's such a pleasure to talk to you, and as I said, the EP in itself is a stunning project, but I really do mean it and believe that you have something extremely, extremely unique and powerful with your voice and your lyrical and musical composition. I would urge everyone to listen to Soundbites because it is absolutely fantastic, and you really are a wonderful and unique individual, as well as a wonderful and unique artist. It's been a real pleasure to chat to you again. It's been absolutely lovely. I'm sure we will catch up again in the future, but for the minute, Miri, Thank you so much for coming back on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, and it's been lovely chatting with you, so thank you for all your support. Really does mean a lot.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you, Miri. Miri is one of the most fantastic guests to interview. She's so wonderful and so eloquent, and her descriptions and explanations of why she does music and why she does the additional work as a side to it are just glorious to listen to. She's absolutely fantastic, and as I repeatedly said in the interview, the Soundbites EP is a must listen. I'd urge you all to download it now. But here is probably the standout track from that EP, and the one that we did discuss at length. It is Good Ones. So here is Miri with this superb Good Ones. Enjoy.
Why do the good ones stumble? Why do the good ones fall? Why do the ones who cause destruction feel nothing now. Why do the brave crumble? Why do the brave go unheard? Why do the cowards prosper in the dust? I keep on loving, I keep on living for today. Yeah, yeah. I keep on loving, I keep on living for today. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Why do the good ones stumble? Why do the good ones burn? Why do the ones who cause the suffering, they never learn? They never learn. I keep on loving, I keep on living for today. Yeah, yeah. I keep on loving, I keep on living.
And that's it. This very special episode of Topple Uncaged is done. I'd like to thank my fantastic guest, the sensational MIRI. You can follow her on Twitter. It's at MIRIOfficialUK. As always, behind the scenes, thank you to the love of my life, the gorgeous Nicola Jeffrey. Follow her on Twitter. It's at Nicola C. Jeffrey. My man behind the booth, sound engineer Gav Pause. Follow him on Twitter. It's at Pause with AZ Radio. And my in-house singer, it's Raystar Music. Follow her on Twitter. It's at Ray_star113. Thank you to the Canary for uncaging me. I will see you again soon.
Uncaged.